Hi, good evening. Welcome to the very last office hours. Although it kind of won't be because you're part of the Facebook group. And so you'll actually have access to my office hours from the next class, and you can ask questions then if you want to. I don't know if I'll be doing it every week like I did this class, because that was a lot, and we're going to be traveling a little bit during the next course. But I should be answering them pretty regularly, and once we get into new courses, maybe the questions will be very different, because at some point in the fall, I'm going to teach one based on the book Submit, Publish, Repeat, which is all about submitting to literary journals. And so I'm really looking forward to that one, because that's how I got my start. And also because that's something I do a lot, and it's really changing right now. And I think it's very important to talk about those changes, because it's changing how people's books are being published too, and whose books are being published. So that's, I think, really interesting. So I only have 2 questions tonight. So far, feel free to ask any questions in the chat bar thing. Sorry for the non-technical term. And they're both from Winston. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what to do after the class. And I know not everyone watches these live. Actually, a lot of people watch it after. So I'm kind of expecting that, and saying the extra stuff with that in mind. So Winston asks, if an agent reads your manuscript and makes comments on it, but passes, is it still okay to revise the manuscript to address these issues and then resubmit? Well, you should revise the manuscript to address those issues, because agents usually just pass. And so it's a really good sign that they're sending you specific revisions, and you should listen to those. But unless they specifically say, resubmit this to me, they do not want to see it again. And that's just what every agent I've talked to has said to me. Maybe there's an exception out there, but that's just generally good manners, because they will be really clear with you if they do want to see it again. And I've had that happen. So it does happen. But usually, even if there's like suggested revisions, they don't want to see it again unless they explicitly state that. But question number 2 has a very interesting and different answer, because question number 2 is slightly related. And it's, if an agent gives you a good rejection on a manuscript, is it okay to query with another book? And you should, actually. I've had 2 friends find their agents this way, actually. It's usually a really good sign if they like one book. It usually is an indicator that they really like your writing, but maybe that topic wasn't quite right for them, or they didn't think that was a good fit with the market right now. And so, yes, it is good to submit a different book, but not the same one revised, to them. So I'm really glad you asked both those questions, because they had, these slightly different answers. And so I guess because there's no questions in the chat bar thingy, I should really figure out what it's called. I am going to talk about what you should do going forward, what I'm hoping that you'll do with this course and the information in this course. First of all, for anyone who doesn't know already, the information should be available to everyone for a while going forward. We're not sure exactly how long it will be available to everyone for Thinkific, but we're hoping that at least 3 months should be available and accessible if you want to review it, if you need to go over anything. And if you want to email me at any time after this, you can always email me at support@authorspublish.com. And maybe remind me, if it's a long time from now, which class you are in, because I interact with a lot of people online, and because you can't see their faces. This is one of the reasons I like Facebook. Sometimes you forget who's who. And like, I know a lot of Bobs and Johns, and those names kind of like mix up for me. But some names are very distinct, like Cecily or Winston. And those are easier for me to spot out. But, if you do email me a long time from now, make sure you remind me of this course. So you can contact me through there, and I am on Facebook, and you can ask questions directly into the group, and I will answer them, not always in office hours, but like just there too. That's an option. You don't have to have the awkward video version of me. You can have the much more concise typed version. Although some questions are much easier to answer in this format, and that's been interesting, discovering which questions are easier to answer this way and which questions are easier to answer typed. And so, yeah, so it's not like this course is over and nothing's ever going to happen again. Ask questions, keep in touch. That'd be great. But what you should be doing going forward with your manuscript is hopefully, if you got like lots of notes back from me, some people did get lots of notes back on their first 20 pages, and some people got very minor revisions. It's really a whole range. So some people will be working on those revisions for a while, and some people will already have been done with those revisions. And other people's revisions, like some of the revisions I suggest, only affected the first like little bit of their book, but others had like much larger repercussions for the overarching plot. And so, people will be working longer on those. But keep revising. That's the first step. And then once it's ready, which some people's are, and once you're really happy with your core letter, and some people's were very close or, ready to go out, start submitting. And that's the research section. And I will say that I've been really happy with all the assignments that were handed in. And the only thing that I wished is that a few more people handed in the research assignments, because it was the least handed in assignment. And I feel like it's something that authors don't like doing. And I can get that. I think I have a natural affinity for research, and my undergrad degree is actually in history and classical civilization. And if you're a historian or interested in history, you actually end up reading and doing a lot of research. And so that's always been a passion of mine. My very first poetry collection was all research-based poetry, which is not common, in case you were wondering. So I'm a giant dork, and I really love just researching and digging into things, and I find intense satisfaction there. So when people won't research, I'm like, no, you should. It's fun, but I get it's not for everyone. That being said, if you're going to be happy with the publisher that you end up, you're probably going to have to do a fair amount of research before that. And one of the things that I wish that I got more into in the last class, and that I will be getting into in the next course more, but that someone brought up in questions on the course itself, and I answered there, is this idea of how much marketing do you need to do? And I did talk about that a little, but I can talk about it more. And that's just that if you do the research correctly and you find a company that is a good fit for you, you should also make sure that if you're not very comfortable with marketing, that they will A, have a clear marketing plan for you, B, have a marketing director, which generally means they're more focused on you, and see that they have good distribution. I've seen that almost always, if someone has good distribution, they have at least okay marketing. And even if their marketing is bad, you're in bookstores, and so people are seeing you. Booksellers are seeing your book. They're probably reading it. They might end up putting it on the staff picks. The minute your physical books are in bookstores, that's a big leap forward. So distribution is huge. So even if they're not great at marketing, being good at distribution counts for a lot. And that's one of the reasons that I always bring that up in authors publish reviews. The distribution, I always bring up if there's a marketing director, what sort of marketing they seem to do, because it's really important. And lots of authors aren't terribly comfortable with marketing. I'm not terribly comfortable with marketing, but it is a part of modern publication. You cannot avoid it at all. All the small press publications I've done so far, I've had to market to a certain degree, even when the head of the small press, in the case of one of them, she was very proactive and did market too, but I was expected to collaborate and to help. And that's just how publishing works. And people like to say that this is a new thing, but the very first class, and I think I've touched on this before, I ever took was with Robert Ferrigno at University of Washington. It was the first class I sort of took on mass market fiction. And he talked about getting his very first signed contract. It was with a Big Five publisher back in the heyday of Big Five publishers. So before the 2008 recession, or 2009. Numbers are not my strong suit. And he signed this really big contract. It's this really big deal. And he's like, okay, this will just take care of everything. But then his wife at the time, might still be his wife was like, no, you should take all of your advance money and you should put it towards a publicist. And he says to this day, he owes his entire career kind of to this, at least initially, is that he took that money and he put it towards a publicist. And that publicist managed to get his first book in Time magazine, just like a little blurb, like you should be reading this right now blurb when it first came out. And that made a huge difference in sales. The publicist also got a mention in a couple of other key places, and that made a huge difference. And it was funny. He said he was walking through an airport right after it had come out, and he passed his book on one of the airport turnstiles, and he was like, "That's my book." And he said it to the person who was the manager of the store that it was selling it. And the guy goes, "Well, it's got to sell at least 3 copies today in my store, or it's not going to be there tomorrow." And so he saw the sort of pressure that especially stores that have a small book selling space are under to move copies. And he saw how important publicity was and like placement. I think those are all good things to think about in terms of publishing your book. And I think it's really important. I think a lot of people leave like the sort of talk about BookBub and various other ways of moving self-published or traditionally published books to marketers. But it is good to do research there too, if you can, if you have that kind of time. But if you get the right publisher, you're on the right track, which is why it's so important to do as much groundwork research as you possibly can. And like part of that is every day I check the Absolute Rights water cooler for updates on the publisher reviews I've already done. And I do all sorts of things like that are just little things that add up every day towards getting a more cohesive experience. I've spent way more time on Glassdoor than I ever thought I would, particularly since I do not want to work for any of these companies in terms of being an employee. But I mean, if you are treating your employees really bad, and I've seen this over time and time with publishers, with other companies, usually it's a sign of not good things. And you don't want to work with a publishing company that treats its in-house employees bad, because they probably treat the people they sign contracts with, the people they never meet, even worse. So hopefully you go on from this course and you keep writing, you keep revising, you keep submitting, and hopefully that equals a book. And if it does, please tell me, send me an email. I'll be ecstatic for you. And yeah, so keep at it. This isn't like a one-time. Now you have like the footpath forward, and you should use this information and go out into the world and get your book out into the world. That's my hope. Winston sent me a message that said, regarding history and poetry, I'm reading Adam Nicholson's Why Homer Matters and really enjoying it. I should read that. Sounds really interesting. Obviously, classical civ is very important to me. And I love the Odyssey, but not Iliad. And have lots of opinions on both of them, but definitely pro-Odyssey, anti-Iliad. Yeah, so that was a good question. Or not a question, side note. But I'm adding that to my reading list, Winston. And I was wondering if there's any other questions, any things I should add. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off in about a minute. My personal update of the week, as I like to think of it, is that we're doing the poetry marathon on not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, and it's 24 poems in 24 hours. And I came up with this idea about 7 years ago with my husband. Well, I came up with the idea. I was like, I want to write 1 poem an hour for 24 hours because I think that would challenge me to write better. And I'm going to post them online. And my husband said, that sounds great. I want to do it with you. And I was like, sure, you can do that. And he's like, and let's see how many other people we can convince. And I'm like, no one else is going to want to do this. This is clearly insane. And the first year we were only able to convince 4 other people. And only one of those other people made it through all the way with us. And the other 3 people, I think, 2 of them made it about halfway. And one of them tragically made it to like hour 20 and then fell asleep and didn't wake up again. And I'm really sorry that happened. And it's terrible. But she's since made it all the way through. And that's the weird thing about the poetry marathon, is that once people start doing it, they like keep on doing it. over and over and over and over again. So we've had lots of people now that are on their 5th marathon. And I think that's really exciting. But there's also a Much Less Insane half poetry marathon option. And that is to do 12 poems in 12 hours, which might be what I'm doing this year, because we have 2 small children and they don't really believe in sleep. So we don't get that much sleep. And so staying up for that period of time, plus not ever getting very much sleep ever, probably not the best combination. But yeah, so if you want to join us with that, there's poetrymarathon.com, and there's all the information for the sign up there. It closes tomorrow. And there's going to be an anthology this year. We actually raised $500 to pay someone else to edit the anthology. Historically, I've always done it, and I'm very grateful to not. But all of the contributors, everyone who survives the whole poetry marathon, and a lot of people drop out, although we had an over 60% success rate last year, or the year before, we took last year off, are able to submit to the anthology, and they will automatically be included one of their 2 poems. So worth looking into, and lots of fun. And thank you all for joining me for this course. It's been really great. And I've really loved reading everyone's manuscripts and their query letters, and reading their research and seeing different people's approach to research. And it's been like, the people who did the research paper did a really great job. So yeah, if you haven't done that yet, please submit it to me within the next week, because after that I'm starting a new course and I'll be under a giant pile of the 20-page manuscripts. Yeah, probably not the best time to look at the research papers. So thank you so much, and be in touch, and good luck with everything. Thank you. Bye.